Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia, and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020 Shanghai Dragons preview. So, the Shanghai Dragons then, the team that I billed as the most improved team in 2019. Let's be honest, I don't think you can get much worse than what they did in the inaugural season. Shanghai Dragons are the infamous 0-40 team from our inaugural season, the team that did not win a game. But the Shanghai Dragons were not going to stay like that for very long. In 2019, they were massively improved. They reached an 11th place finish with a 13-15 record, reaching the play-ins where they would lose very narrowly to London Spitfire and not reach the playoffs. Although I think they had the potential to reach the playoffs, I just think the meta changed slightly out of their favour towards the end of the season. But the Shanghai Dragons have made a lot of changes during this off-season once again, so we have got a lot to talk about, so we should actually crack on with it. Let's start with the Shanghai Dragons backroom, their organisation, their coaches. Let's talk about it, shall we? So, they have let their head coach, Blue Hass, go. They have let Levy, their assistant coach, go to the Paris Eternal. They have let Michael, their operations director, go, and they've let their other assistant coach, Creed, go to the Guangzhou Charge. So there's been a lot of changes. They've also had changes with their marketing PR managers, their cinematographers. There's been a lot of changes at the Shanghai Dragons. And they've kind of whittled this down to a few people. So they brought in a whole new coaching staff. This is Moon as a head coach, Dong Su as an assistant coach, and J Phil as an assistant coach as well. So Moon, the head coach, comes in from Team CC. Well, Team CC is the academy team of the Shanghai Dragons and Chinese contenders. Team CC have always done pretty well. They're currently second to LGE Huya, who are the academy team of Chengdu Hunters at the moment. Huya are kind of dominating Chinese contenders. But Moon also had time at the LA Valiant as well as LW Red back in 2017. LW Red will have connections to the NYXL with their squad. So Moon has a pretty storied history in Overwatch coaching. He's been a coach throughout the years, and I think this is a pretty good pickup as head coach for the Shanghai Dragons. Then we have Dong Su. Dong Su also had time at the LA Valiant, but also spent time at WGS Laurels 9 and Conbox. So Dong Su, another coach with quite a bit of history in the Overwatch esports scene. But then we move on to J Phil. J Phil is probably the coach with the best experience in the Overwatch League so far. So he comes in from London Spitfire. London Spitfire have obviously made a lot of changes during this off-season, and one of them was to offload J Phil as a coach. J Phil was part of the coaching lineup that won the inaugural season with the London Spitfire and won the Stage 1 title matches with London Spitfire over the NYXL in 2018 as well. So he comes in with a lot of knowledge. He also was with Cloud9 Chengdu Panthera, GC Busan, so he has a lot of experience. J Phil, I think, is the most experienced coach on this roster, so I think he will offer a really good insight for this Shanghai Dragons team, and he obviously knows what it's like to win. He's been a professional player in Heroes of the Storm as well, so J Phil is a really good pickup for the Shanghai Dragons. But it doesn't end there. New coaching staff, yes, it's very nice, but a new roster is something entirely different, and basically half of the Shanghai Dragons roster this year is entirely new. So, it's a complete 12-man roster. They are full to the brim with players. They have retained Dia, but he is moved to a two-way contract with Team CC. They have also retained Gaguri, DM, Ding, Luffy, and Izayaki from the team they had last season, although Izayaki did come in quite late last season in July, so I kind of expect them to retain him. But those are the players they're going to keep on from last season. Now let's look at their new players coming in for 2020, and there are some pretty big names here. Some from the Overwatch League, some not from the Overwatch League. So, we start off from a big name from the Overwatch League, and it's Fletter, the DPS from Seoul Dynasty. Now, we looked up Seoul Dynasty yesterday, I believe, and we did note that the Fletter had gone to the Shanghai Dragons. I think this is a good pickup for Shanghai, providing the meta favours Fletter. I love saying that. Because last year, the meta really didn't favour Fletter at all, so he really wasn't able to shine. Whereas in the inaugural season, he really did pop off. He was a really good player and definitely the standout player on the Seoul Dynasty roster. So I can understand why the Shanghai Dragons have picked up Fletter when they've got the opportunity. And especially looking at the buffs and nerfs that have just gone to the PTR, which is most likely the patch we're going to be playing on because it's still regarded as 1.44, we look like we could be getting out a double barrier, which could open up more opportunity for hit scan heroes such as Widowmaker and McCree to be much more impactful in 2020, which is where Fletter will be very, very good for the Shanghai Dragons. So this is a really good pickup for the Shanghai Dragons. Then we move on to a less well-known player who is called Lip. So Lip comes in from Blossom. Now, Blossom, they've been a decent team in Korea. They've been in and out of trials. And when they picked up Blossom, I was a bit iffy about this signing because I thought, well, really, he's going to have a lot to prove going into the Overwatch League because he's not really got the track record that you'd expect a team like Shanghai Dragons for a player that they would be picking up. But he's a hit scan player. And then I saw the Shanghai Masters, the Invitational, back at the end of last year, where Lip played a very big role for the Shanghai Dragons, and he was on the Reaper mostly. And he was by far the standout player that I saw on that roster. He was really, really good. And definitely the best DPS I saw in that competition. So I think Lip is a bit of a sleeper player coming into this 2020 season. I think he could actually be pretty darn good. And I look forward to seeing him play in 2020. But moving on after that, we have Void. Void comes in from the Los Angeles Gladiators. Now, Los Angeles Gladiators have made quite a few changes during this off-season, and the Shanghai Dragons have picked up on this. Void has time at Team Chengdu Panthera and Cloud9 Chengdu, so Void has a pretty storied history again in competitive Overwatch and Overwatch esports. The LA Gladiators have been a very consistent side during the Overwatch League era, with them placing fairly highly during the inaugural season and during the 2019 season. So I think Void is a really good stable off-tank pickup for the Shanghai Dragons, and I expect him to be probably in the starting roster for Shanghai as well. Next up, we have a new main tank for the Shanghai Dragons, and this is Stand 1. Stand 1 comes in from the Gladiators Legion. He also had time with Team Envy and NRG Esports, who were the academy side of the San Francisco Shock. Stand 1 has had a decent history in NA contenders with the Gladiators Legion and NRG, getting fairly high-placed finishes and coming second in the Atlantic Showdown in 2019 with Team Envy, losing only to the Fusion University, who were very, very dominant at that time. So I think this is actually a good pickup for the Shanghai Dragons. When you look on paper, it isn't up to scratch with perhaps the rest of the main tank options in the Overwatch League, but I think it's a tank option that really could develop into a really good one. There was a lot of rumours early on around them signing Bumper. That's not going to happen. So I think this could be a decent signing for the Shanghai Dragons. And then we have a really good signing. This is in the support area. This is Li Jaegon. So Li Jaegon is one of the great runaway players that we've seen of the past few years. Li Jaegon, really, really good for runaway in that support role, playing the Lucio, playing the Mercy. He's still only 18. A lot of people were expecting Li Jaegon to be picked up into the Overwatch League. Again, when I mention runaway, we don't need to go in depth about their history. Runaway, right up there as one of the best teams in the world in Tier 2. That's without a doubt. Definitely vying for that top spot with Element Mystique and other teams such as that. Countless trophies Li Jaegon has got, so I think this is a really good pickup for Shanghai, and he is a really, really big name and really good player to be putting in that backline alongside the likes of Luffy or Izayaki, although I expect him to be taking the place of Luffy most likely. Lastly, we have the main tank player, Fearless. Now, Fearless has played for the Shanghai Dragons before, back in the inaugural season when, yes, the Shanghai Dragons weren't brilliant, let's be honest. But I am not expecting Fearless to be the starting tank for the Shanghai Dragons. I expect that to be Stand 1 in the main tank role. Fearless is definitely a backup. Fearless had his time at Shanghai Dragons and then dropped to Team CC, the academy team in China, and now has been promoted back to Shanghai Dragons. So clearly he's shown some decent play for Team CC. They did win the China seeding tournament for 2020 contenders with Fearless playing. So I think this could be a decent pickup for the Shanghai Dragons and definitely the squad depth they needed for the 2020 season. But of course, all these players moving in means they've got rid of some players. So, Envy, the off-tank, has retired. Koma, the support, is now unassigned. Gamsu, the main tank, has gone to the Dallas Fuel. We've mentioned that in earlier videos. Youngjin, the famous C9er, you're never going to live that down, I'm afraid. He has retired. And that opens up the spots for those new players. So Shanghai definitely looking more powerful than last season, in my opinion. I think there is a lot of good quality in this squad. They've got a lot of depth as well. We know how good DM and Ding have been before. Now they've got Lip and Fletter as well in that DPS role. I think the DPS line for the Shanghai Dragons is actually pretty darn powerful. They've got a really good support line with Li Jie gone, and then the option of Izayaki or Luffy. Most likely I think it will be Izayaki and Li Jie gone as the support line, I would have thought. But again, it's pretty interchangeable. And then we have the tank line of most likely Stand 1 and Void, I would have thought, with Giguri and Fearless backing them up. Giguri in the Invitational back at the end of last year did play the Orisa. So Giguri could be the option if they really were stuck for a main tank, but that's when they didn't have Fearless. So I'm expecting Giguri to be the off-tank backup. And then Dia can always stand in if really essential in that DPS role, but I'm not expecting to see much of Dia in 2020. But that rounds us out for the Shanghai Dragons. Let's take a look at their fixtures for the up-and-coming season. They will start off in Shanghai with their very own homestand in Week 2, providing it does go ahead, considering obviously the coronavirus issues in China right now. It might not quite go that way. We will see what happens. But they will start off in Week 2 at their own homestand, providing everything is okay. And they will take on the Chengdu Hunters and the Seoul Dynasty. This will be two very good indications of where these teams are at, actually. Because Seoul Dynasty are a team that's definitely improved in this off-season, but are they quite up there? I think Shanghai, honestly, might have a more powerful roster than the Seoul Dynasty. And then Chengdu Hunters, you could never quite know what Chengdu Hunters are going to throw at you, so that'll be interesting. The thing is, the start to the season actually is pretty tough for the Shanghai Dragons, because in Week 3 they've got to go and play the Los Angeles Gladiators and the San Francisco Shock. That's no easy games. And then in Week 4 they've got the Vancouver Titans as well, which is not going to be easy, although I think this new Shanghai Dragons roster has the capability of seeing off the Vancouver Titans if they play to their very best. Then they have some slightly easier games against the Valiant and perhaps the Dallas Fuel, which I would expect this Shanghai Dragons roster to be able to win. But then again, they've got to take on Chengdu, Vancouver, Los Angeles Gladiators again. So it's a pretty tough start to the season for Shanghai Dragons. But the other way you can look at it for this Shanghai squad is it's a start to the season where they could really lay down the law. And if they can, and get some surprise victories, if they can beat people like the Gladiators, then we're looking at a really good Shanghai, and a Shanghai that is perhaps going to be right up there for those playoffs this season. But that is going to round it off for Shanghai. We have 3 teams left to preview, and there will be a Canadian doubleheader coming up with the Toronto Defiant first and then the Vancouver Titans before we round it off with the Washington Justice. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then. See you then.